Carl Jung and the Dark Calling. How to find yourself when everything feels empty. Have you ever felt like everything around you has lost its meaning? Like there's a silent void inside you, something you can't quite explain, yet it weighs heavily on your soul? Maybe that emptiness isn't a mistake. Maybe it's a dark calling. And Carl Jung, the father of deep psychology, believed that it's in these darkest moments that we begin to truly find ourselves. In this video, we're going to explore that hidden calling, the one that whispers to you when your world feels like it's falling apart. We'll dive into Jung's insights on the inner void and how it can become a gateway to your most authentic self. This is not just a journey of healing, it's a journey of awakening. Before we begin, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you've been searching for deeper meaning, this space is for you. Let's walk this path together. Topic 1. The emptiness is not a curse, it's a message. There comes a moment in every person's life when silence becomes louder than noise. Not the kind of silence we seek in peace, but the heavy kind, the one that echoes through your soul when everything feels disconnected. You wake up, but you don't feel awake. You walk through your days, but something inside you feels missing. This is not just sadness, it's a deeper form of emptiness. Carl Jung would not see this as something to be avoided. He would see it as a signal, a message from the unconscious, a whisper from the self, the deeper core of your being, asking you to stop pretending everything is fine. This isn't depression alone. It's a spiritual alarm clock, one that goes off when your life has drifted too far from meaning. Most people try to escape this void. They run from it, numb it with distractions, silence it with busyness or superficial pleasure. But Jung would say, don't run. Listen. The void is not your enemy, it is your guide. It appears not to punish you, but to initiate you into a new stage of inner life. What if the emptiness you feel is actually an invitation? A secret door in your soul, waiting to be opened? This is the dark calling. It's not glamorous. It doesn't come wrapped in light. It comes in shadows, in isolation, in nights you can't sleep and mornings you wish you could skip. But it comes with purpose, to awaken you. You were not meant to live a life disconnected from your essence. When your soul begins to suffocate under a life that no longer nourishes you, the dark calling begins to rise. It creeps into your awareness, slowly at first, then louder. And when you ignore it, it turns into symptoms. Anxiety, fatigue, burnout, meaninglessness. Jung believed that our unconscious mind tries to balance us. If your outer life becomes too artificial, your inner world starts demanding attention. The void, then, is not a failure. It is a correction. It is the unconscious trying to save you before you lose yourself completely. In modern society, this message is misunderstood. Emptiness is labeled as a disorder to be fixed, not a doorway to be entered. But ancient traditions knew better, and so did Jung. He taught that you cannot become whole until you face the parts of you that you've abandoned, suppressed, or forgotten. The question is not, how do I get rid of this emptiness? The question is, what is it trying to show me? Once you ask that, your journey begins. The dark calling will often point you toward things you've ignored. Your unlived passions, your childhood wounds, your buried fears, your hidden truths. These fragments of your inner self are not gone, they are just waiting to be reclaimed. You don't need to have all the answers. In fact, this stage of the journey is not about answers, it's about listening. Listening to your dreams, to your discomfort, to your quiet longings that you've pushed aside for years. Have you ever noticed how, in times of deep emptiness, you start to question everything? Your relationships, your job, your identity, even your purpose? This questioning is not random. It's a detox of the false self. The person you became just to survive, not to thrive. It's painful, yes. It's confusing, absolutely. But it's also powerful. Because every time you shed an old illusion, you get closer to your authentic self. The dark calling, then, is not a tragedy. It's a rebirth. Carl Jung described this process as individuation, the path of becoming who you truly are. But that path always begins in the dark. There is no shortcut. There is only the courage to walk through the void and trust that there's something waiting on the other side. And yet, most people never begin this journey, not because they lack intelligence, but because they fear discomfort. But what they don't realize is that staying stuck in a life without meaning is far more painful than walking through the unknown. So, if you feel empty, take a breath. Don't panic. Don't fight it. Instead, ask, what is my soul trying to tell me? What part of myself have I been ignoring? What truth am I afraid to face? This is the beginning. And beginnings are never comfortable, but they are sacred. The dark calling is not here to destroy you. It's here to awaken you to something deeper than you've ever known. You are not broken. You are being summoned. The void is not the end, it's the threshold. Step into it, and you'll discover that the path to finding yourself was hidden in the emptiness all along. Topic 2. Jung's shadow work. Meeting the parts of you that you've hidden. Every person carries a hidden self, a part of them that lives in the dark corners of the psyche, often ignored, denied, or repressed. Carl Jung called this the shadow. It is made of everything you were taught to reject. Your fears, your impulses, your anger, your wounds, even your unclaimed power. But ignoring the shadow doesn't erase it, it only makes it stronger in silence. Jung believed that true healing and self-discovery only begin when we stop running from the shadow and start confronting it. The shadow is not evil, it's unconscious. It's the raw material of your psyche that, when integrated, becomes strength, creativity, clarity, and authenticity. But to integrate it, you first have to see it. How do you meet your shadow? Not through force, but through awareness. It often reveals itself in the people you judge, the things you fear, the reactions you can't control, and the patterns you repeat without understanding why. Your shadow is always whispering to you, not to haunt you, but to guide you. For example, if you constantly attract toxic relationships, there is a message in that pattern. Something unresolved within you, perhaps an unmet need, a wound of abandonment, or a hidden belief that you are unworthy, is asking to be acknowledged. The outer experience mirrors the inner reality. Shadow work is not about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming the lost parts of your psyche so you can become whole again. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That is the essence of shadow work, becoming aware of what's been silently controlling you. Most people avoid this work because it's uncomfortable. It forces you to see things you'd rather not face. But the irony is that what you resist the most often contains the key to your freedom. What if the parts you reject are actually the source of your deepest power? Think about it. Your anger might be protecting your boundaries. Your fear might be guarding your truth. Your sadness might be reminding you of something sacred you've lost. When you begin to look at these emotions not as problems, but as messengers, your entire inner world starts to shift. Jung didn't believe in perfection. He believed in integration. Becoming your true self doesn't mean becoming flawless. It means becoming complete. And that includes the parts you've been taught to hide. Have you ever felt like there's a version of you that's trapped beneath the surface? A voice inside you that wants to speak, a fire that wants to burn, a truth that wants to be seen? That's your shadow asking to be welcomed, not judged. Shadow work doesn't happen overnight. It's a lifelong journey. But every moment of honesty with yourself is a step toward liberation. You don't need to fix everything at once. You just need to start being real. One powerful way to begin this process is through journaling. Write down your triggers. Ask yourself, what am I afraid people will see in me? Then ask, what if that's exactly what I need to embrace? The shadow becomes less terrifying when you bring it into the light. Your dreams also hold clues. Jung believed that symbols, archetypes, and strange imagery in dreams are the language of the unconscious. When a disturbing dream appears, don't dismiss it, explore it. What is your soul trying to show you? Even your projections, The qualities you admire or despise in others are reflections of your inner world. That person you envy? Maybe they represent a part of you you've silenced. That person you resent? Maybe they're embodying a truth you haven't claimed. Shadow work is sacred work. It's not just psychological, it's spiritual. Because every step you take towards self-honesty reconnects you with your essence, and the deeper you go, the more free you become. So when the dark calling leads you into uncomfortable truths, don't turn back. Go deeper. The treasure you seek is often guarded by the dragons you've refused to face. And Jung knew, it is only by meeting those dragons that you earn the right to become fully yourself. You are not meant to live half a life. You are not meant to bury your pain, your power, or your truth. You are meant to rise, not as a perfect being, but as a complete one. And that completeness begins when you say yes to your shadow. Topic 3. The self behind the mask. Rediscovering who you were before the world told you who to be. From an early age, we learn to wear masks. We're told how to behave, what to believe, what success looks like, and who we should become. Little by little, the authentic self is pushed aside, replaced by a social self, a version of you shaped more by expectations than by essence. But somewhere deep inside, your true self still waits, silent, patient, hoping you'll remember. Carl Jung distinguished between the persona, the mask you wear in public, and the self, your whole, integrated being. The persona isn't fake, it's necessary for functioning in society. But when you identify only with that mask, you begin to forget who you truly are. And the farther you drift from yourself, the louder the inner emptiness grows. The mask can be charming. It can make you feel accepted, admired, even powerful. But it comes with a price, disconnection. Because every time you sacrifice your truth for approval, you lose a piece of your inner life. You become successful on the outside, but hollow on the inside. Have you ever had moments where, despite achieving what you were supposed to want, you still felt unfulfilled? That's the voice of the self calling out beneath the persona. It's not that your accomplishments are meaningless, it's that they're not aligned with your soul. Jung taught that your self is not something you invent, it's something you uncover. It's already there, beneath the conditioning, beneath the wounds, beneath the roles you've been forced to play. Rediscovering it requires courage, because it often means unlearning everything you thought you had to be. Sometimes, the first step in this process is discomfort. A sense that your life no longer fits. A quiet longing for something more real, more aligned, more alive. This is not a failure. It's a signal that your self is stirring beneath the surface. You may start to feel out of place in environments you once thrived in. Conversations that once excited you may now feel empty. People you once chased may now feel distant. That's not you becoming lost. It's you becoming aware. And awareness is powerful. Once you taste authenticity, it becomes difficult to go back to pretending. You begin to crave depth. You begin to crave truth. You begin to crave you. But rediscovering the self is not a sudden epiphany, it's a slow return. A sacred unraveling of false layers. It happens in quiet reflection, in soulful conversations, in solitary walks, in moments of raw honesty when you whisper to yourself, "This isn't who I am anymore." You might feel guilty for wanting to change. You might fear disappointing others. But here's the truth. Living a lie just to meet expectations is a slow form of spiritual death. Your self doesn't want a perfect life, it wants a real one. Jung emphasized that the path of individuation, becoming your true self, requires solitude. Not isolation, but space. Space to hear your own voice again. Space to ask, what do I want? What do I believe? Who am I when no one is watching? You don't need to have all the answers. You only need to start asking better questions. Questions that come not from fear, but from longing. Not from obligation, but from soul. Start small. Reconnect with what once made your eyes light up. Reflect on the moments when you felt most alive. Follow the trail of what brings you peace, what sparks curiosity, what ignites your spirit. These are breadcrumbs leading you back to the self. Your path won't look like anyone else's, and that's the point. The self is unique. It doesn't fit into formulas. It doesn't seek imitation. It seeks embodiment. When you begin to live from the self, your energy changes. You no longer chase validation, you radiate presence. You no longer seek to impress, you seek to express. And in that expression, you inspire others to do the same. But it all begins with a simple act. Removing the mask, even just for a moment, and allowing yourself to breathe as you truly are. That's not weakness, that's sacred strength. Because nothing is more powerful than a human being who dares to be whole. So if you've felt lost, confused, disconnected, take heart. You are not broken. You are simply remembering. The self you've been searching for has been with you all along, patiently waiting behind the mask. Topic 4. The inner guide, learning to trust your intuition in the midst of chaos. When everything around you feels uncertain, one voice often becomes louder, not the external noise, but the soft whisper within. It's your intuition, the inner guide that speaks not with logic, but with knowing. Carl Jung saw intuition not as a mystical concept, but as a fundamental psychological function, a bridge between the conscious mind and the unconscious world. Most people overlook this inner guide because it doesn't always speak in words. It speaks in sensations, symbols, feelings, and subtle nudges. It's not the loudest voice, it's the most honest. And in a world that rewards speed and surface-level thinking, intuition is the art of slowing down and listening deeply. Jung believed that intuition connects you with the deeper truths that reason alone cannot reach. It allows you to sense meaning where others see confusion, to feel direction even when there is no clear path. But trusting your intuition requires practice, and the willingness to be still. Have you ever had a moment when something just didn't feel right, even though, on the surface, everything seemed fine? That discomfort was your intuition alerting you. Or perhaps you felt inexplicably drawn to a path, a person, or an idea, not because it made sense, but because it resonated deeply. That was your inner compass guiding you. The problem is that most of us were taught to dismiss that voice. We were trained to value facts over feelings, evidence over inner knowing. But in doing so, we abandoned a critical part of our intelligence, the intuitive dimension of the soul. When you begin to trust your intuition, you reclaim your inner authority. You stop outsourcing your decisions to others. You begin to live from within, not from reaction, not from fear, not from external pressure. You become self-directed, not self-distracted. This doesn't mean rejecting logic. It means balancing it. Jung believed in the harmony of opposites. Logic and feeling, reason and intuition, structure and flow. A truly integrated life honors both the head and the heart. Your intuition often appears in moments of stillness, in dreams, meditations, nature walks, or sudden inner clarity when you're not even trying. It's in those quiet moments that the unconscious speaks most clearly. That's why silence is not emptiness, it's access. Jung encouraged the exploration of symbolism and synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that can't be explained by chance. These moments are not accidents, they are signals from the unconscious, nudging you toward alignment. When you start paying attention, life begins to speak in a different language. You start seeing patterns. You start feeling deeper resonance with certain ideas, people, or places. You begin to recognize when something feels off, even before your mind can explain why. This is not paranoia, it's perception. One powerful way to deepen this connection is through dream journaling. Your dreams are a mirror of your subconscious, and often they carry intuitive messages in the form of images and symbols. Write them down. Reflect on them. Ask what they might be trying to tell you. Another method is body awareness. Intuition often speaks through the body before it reaches the mind. A tightness in your chest, a sudden lightness, a gut feeling, these are signals worth decoding. Your body remembers what your mind forgets. Learning to trust your intuition doesn't happen all at once. It's a relationship you cultivate, and like all relationships, it deepens with attention, respect, and patience. The more you listen, the clearer it becomes. You might still make mistakes. That's human. But even your missteps become part of your guidance system. Your intuition evolves with you. It doesn't demand perfection, it asks for presence. The more you align with your intuition, the more your life feels guided, even in chaos. You begin to feel supported by something larger than yourself, not because you control everything, but because you finally learned to listen to your inner voice. This is what Jung called individuation in motion, not just self-awareness but self-trust, the ability to stand in your truth, even when the world pulls you in other directions. It's the return of your sovereignty. So next time you feel that quiet nudge, that inner knowing that defies logic, don't dismiss it. That might be your soul speaking. That might be the path you were meant to walk all along. The world may call it irrational, but Jung would call it awakening. Topic 5. Integration, becoming whole after the dark night of the soul. There is a moment in every deep transformation where the darkness begins to lift. Not all at once, but gradually, like the first rays of sunlight after a long storm. This is the beginning of integration, the final stage of Jung's path of individuation. It's not the end of your journey, but the moment where everything you've faced, felt, and remembered begins to come together. Integration is about taking everything you've discovered in the darkness, your wounds, your truths, your shadow, yourself, and weaving it into your daily life. It's where spiritual insight becomes practical wisdom, where healing becomes embodiment, where awareness becomes action. Most people think transformation is about leaving the old self behind. But Jung saw it differently. He believed in wholeness, not perfection. Integration doesn't mean becoming a new person. It means becoming a truer version of who you've always been, now fully aware of your depth. After the dark night of the soul, you don't return as the same person. Your eyes see differently. Your heart feels deeper. Your presence becomes more grounded. You no longer chase external validation. You live from internal truth. But integration takes time. It's not a light switch moment. It's a gentle process of realigning your thoughts, your habits, your relationships, your choices, with your deeper self. It's not about doing more. It's about being more authentic in everything you do. One of the most challenging parts of integration is confronting the parts of your life that no longer match who you've become. Some friendships may fade. Some goals may feel empty. Some environments may feel suffocating. That's not regression. That's clarity. You start making different decisions, not out of fear, but from wisdom. You say no more often. You speak your truth more clearly. You choose peace over performance. You begin to live with a quiet kind of power, the power of someone who has touched their own soul and returned whole. Jung often said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. That means you're not supposed to erase your past, your mistakes, or your pain. You're meant to own them and transform them into strength. Your scars become symbols of survival. Your darkness becomes the soil where your light grew. Your shadow becomes a source of depth, empathy, and resilience. You no longer fear the void, you understand it. And you carry this understanding into everything, your work, your relationships, your creativity, your choices. You become a beacon to others, not because you're perfect, but because you've walked through fire and now carry warmth instead of smoke. Integration also means recognizing your cycles. Healing is not linear. You'll still have days of doubt, fear, and fatigue. But now, you meet those moments with compassion, not self-rejection. You no longer panic in the dark. You remember the path through it. The goal was never to eliminate your darkness, but to hold it in balance with your light. To become whole is to embrace duality. To walk as both fire and water, strength and softness, clarity and mystery. In a world obsessed with chasing happiness, integration offers something deeper. meaning. You begin to see that even your suffering had a purpose, that even your emptiness was a message, that even your breakdown was a hidden blessing in disguise. This is when you begin to walk differently. You speak with depth. You listen with presence. You move through life with a silent confidence that only comes from having faced yourself and survived. You don't need to announce your transformation. It shows in your energy. People may notice something different about you. A calm, a clarity, a quiet power. That's the mark of someone who has answered the dark calling and returned whole. So if you've been through your own inner storm, trust this. You didn't go through it in vain. You were never falling apart, you were falling into alignment. You weren't losing yourself, you were returning. Integration is the sacred weaving of shadow and self, pain and purpose, fear and faith. It's the art of becoming human again, fully, honestly, courageously. And that, Jung would say, is the true goal of life, to become who you are, completely. When life feels empty, it's not a sign that you're lost. It's a sign that your soul is calling you home. Carl Jung understood that the path to wholeness is not a straight line, but a descent into the unknown, a confrontation with the forgotten, and a return to the self. The void was never your enemy. It was the doorway you were meant to walk through. You are not here to live a shallow life filled with noise and numbness. You are here to remember your essence, to reclaim the parts of yourself that were silenced, and to walk in the world not as a mask, but as a full, integrated being. And even if the road is dark at times, never forget, darkness is not the absence of light, it is the womb of transformation. If this video resonated with your soul, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Your journey matters, and you are not alone in it. Leave us a comment. Have you ever experienced this dark calling? What helped you begin to find your way back to yourself? Let's continue exploring the deep truths of the psyche and soul together. Until next time, stay brave, stay honest, and keep walking toward your wholeness.